In this video, I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to connect all 5 of your pentatonic scale shapes. Now you'll notice throughout this video, the fretboard diagrams are going to be oriented to match my fretboard. If you do want the flipped fretboard version of these graphics, I will have them available over on my Patreon page. So if that's something that interests you, there will be a link to that at the top of the description of this video. So there are 5 repeating pentatonic positions, and we give each of these positions a number, 1 through 5. And these numbers do get shifted depending on if you're talking about minor pentatonic or major pentatonic, but to keep things simple in this lesson, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to position 1, always position 1 will be the minor pentatonic position, this one right here. That right there is going to be position 1, even though the next one over is technically position 1 of the major pentatonic scale. For the sake of this video, we are always going to call that position 2. And it's important to note that whenever we are moving through scale shapes like this, we are covering both the relative minor and relative major version of the scale. So in this case, we are playing both A minor pentatonic and C major pentatonic because those are relative scales. They share all of the same notes. Because of that, I will make sure to highlight all of the A notes and all of the C notes as well. If you need to learn a little bit more about relative scales and things like that, I will make sure to have a video in the description under referenced videos for you. Okay, so instead of showing you all 5 individual positions first, I actually want to start with the pathway that we're going to use to connect all of these scales. Now, when you play a pentatonic scale, you are essentially playing 5 notes and then repeating those, right? Pentatonic's a 5-note scale. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this is an octave of that first note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you would continue 1, 2, and then as you carry on 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So it is a 5-note repeating scale. Now, when we are learning these pentatonic scales, we are always learning them in a vertical fashion. So 2 notes per string going vertically across the strings. What we're gonna do instead here is we are gonna move in a more horizontal fashion, and we're gonna do this in a really simple way just by moving 1 note. And we're actually gonna start this all the way back in what we would call position 5. So if this is position 1, right, we're gonna move back a position. And I will go over all of these positions later on if you don't know them yet, but position 5 is back here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start all the way down on this G note here on the low E string, and we're gonna play a shape that looks like this. Okay, so all we're doing is instead of going up to the next string, right, we're going. Okay, and it's important to remember that even though we are starting this on this note, this is not a G minor or major pentatonic. We are still in A minor / C major. We're just starting in the 5th position, okay? So if you want to do that slide, you can, you don't have to. Okay? Now you can see your hand is already in the next position. You're now into position 1. So you just moved from position 5 to position 1. And you're going to do the exact same shape, but onto the next strings. Okay? And once again, your hand has shifted. You've actually put yourself into position 2 right here. Okay? So if I'm going to connect those, right? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna do that same 5-note shape, but up on the next 2 strings. The problem is with the way that the B string is tuned, we have to compensate for that. So it's not gonna be right above it. Instead, it's going to be here. And with that slide, we have now pushed ourselves up into position 3. So we've gone 5, 1, 2, we are now in 3. So now we kind of run out of strings here, right? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna launch ourselves with 1 final note on this E string to get ourselves into position 4. And that is just going from here to there, okay? And that brings us all the way up into that final position. So if I go through the whole thing, Okay, so what this is essentially doing is moving us through every single position. Even if you don't know all the individual positional shapes, what you are doing is you're not missing any notes. This is literally a pentatonic scale in order. So the same way that you would practice, it's just a regular pentatonic scale shape, but instead of stacking everything vertically, we've kind of shifted everything so that it happens across the entire fretboard. And the whole idea here is to think of this as like a pathway, is what I usually call it, but you could also think of it as like a track, right? And the idea is that you can get out at individual stops. So again, you want to drill this on its own first, but once you've kind of committed it to muscle memory, at certain points you can stop and you can jump off your track and play in that new position, and then jump back on the track and carry on if you want. To give you the most simple example, if I started down here, I don't have to go up. I can stay in this position if I want. And I could do the same thing in the next position if I wanted to, right? So now I want to show you how this is actually laying over all 5 of the positions. So let's start back here again in position 5, and we're starting with this shape right here. Okay, so that would be position 5. That's where we're starting. Position 1, you probably know this one already, right? Sits right there. Okay, so we're here. Moves us up into position 2. Right, you recognize this as the standard major pentatonic scale shape. So again, 5, 1, 2. Now we're in position 3 here. So now we've got ourselves from position 5 to position 1 to position 2 to position 3. And then that last jump, going all the way up there, is going to give us position 4, which looks like this. And if you haven't run out of frets by this point, you would know that right next to this is position 5 again, right? Because we've reached that whole octave right here. Now, this is by no means the only way to connect all these scales. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can connect the pentatonic scale. I just like this one and think you should drill this one just so that you have at least one, just like you would commit the one vertical scale shape to memory. This is another scale shape that I highly recommend you commit to memory. The great thing about scales in general on the guitar, and this one as well, is that no matter where you're moving onto the fretboard, no matter what key you're in, if we shift this up or down, the actual shape doesn't change. So you're not having to memorize anything new. Now, as far as practicing this new scale shape, I'd recommend practicing it the way you'd practice any scale, which is just running it along to a metronome. Now, personally, I don't really like metronomes that much, even though they're very effective. They can be a little bit boring. So I like to do them along to a track, and I actually have the perfect jam track for practicing this because the tempo is just about perfect, and it is in the same key that we were just working in, A minor / C major. So if you look down at the top few lines of the description, you will see a link to some free backing tracks. This one that I'm going to show you is track number 3. Again, you can download it totally free. Just follow that link. Okay, so we just want to start off nice and slow. So just this fast. Even slower if you want, but I would say about this fast is good. You can start at any point. And if you feel like you can do it, you can go faster. And if you want to go backwards, you can go backwards too. You don't have to though. And then when you feel like you're ready, you can feel free to freestyle with the tempo a little bit as well. And then once you get the hang of that and you feel like this is really under your fingers, this is a great track to start practicing, improvising, and jumping off to those other scale shapes a little bit right at each point. So So again, you can grab that jam track for free as well as a couple others at the link in the description there. And something that's important to me is when I am teaching you something on the guitar is that everything is tied together and connected. I don't want to teach you something that's just kind of a standalone thing. So with a shape like this, you'll notice that it ties into all of the other lead guitar ideas that I've been showing you so far. For example, something like the home bass, horizontal scales, and then also we're not only covering major and minor pentatonic scales, this also works for major and minor scales in general. Those all live, all tied together in one nice spot. So from here, I really would recommend watching my video on building a home bass. I'll put a link to that up in the middle of the screen for you now. If you want to help support the channel, make sure you check out my Patreon, or you can check out my recently launched full-length guitar course called Listen and Play, where I teach you how to play guitar by ear. Links to all that stuff will be in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.